Hello and welcome back to Intertax Learning. This video is part 2 of the CFC series. In this one, I'll be using Apple as an example to explain CFCs. First off, we learned that a CFC is a controlled foreign corporation, of which U.S. shareholders collectively own more than half of the vote or value. Using the fictional Tesla company as an example, Tesla Ireland Limited is a CFC because it's 80% owned by U.S. shareholders. Before 2017 tax reform, or the TCJA, CFCs were one of the most powerful tax planning tools for U.S. tax multinationals. Let's look at Apple. For years, Apple routed a large portion of its international profits through its Irish subsidiaries, Apple Operations International, Apple Operations Europe, and Apple Sales International. These companies were CFCs because they are 100% owned by Apple Inc. Not only can Apple avoid U.S. tax on CFCs' earnings, these CFCs also pay a very low foreign tax rate. Ireland's corporate income tax rate has been kept at 12.5%. Meanwhile, U.S. corporate income tax rate before the TCJA was at 35%. This is a huge difference, which explains why companies like to have an Ireland CFC. Although Ireland is not a tax haven, it is a low tax jurisdiction compared to the U.S. Under the old rules, Apple didn't own any U.S. tax on most of the CFC's income as long as the money stayed offshore. So what happened? Apple accumulated over $250 billion in foreign earnings without triggering U.S. tax. This was the classic pre-TCJA model. Earn profit offshore, keep them offshore, and defer U.S. tax indefinitely. I can't tell you how many multinationals do this. After TCJA, the entire landscape changed. Apple's Irish subsidiaries were still CFCs, but the tax treatment shifted dramatically. First off, the U.S. corporate income tax rate is lowered to 21%. Further, TCJA established the GILTI regime. Under GILTI, most of the income earned by Apple's foreign subsidiaries is now taxed immediately in the U.S., even if the cash never comes back. On top of that, TCJA imposed a one-time repatriation tax on all previously deferred foreign earnings. That's why you see a huge spike in Apple's tax expense around 2017 to 2018. So the old strategies of park profits offshore and avoid U.S. tax forever is essentially gone. Now Apple still has foreign subsidiaries, but the U.S. now taxes much of their income annually through GILTI. And of course, starting from 2026, NCTI, a more rigorous tax, is replacing GILTI. I have a video that goes into the details of how NCTI is different from GILTI, but in summary, just know that more taxable income is subject to U.S. tax under the NCTI. So, what does this mean for multinational companies now? These multinationals should still use CFCs for operational reasons, such as manufacturing, IP ownership, regional hubs, but the tax benefits are much smaller because of GILTI and NCTI. In other words, the deferral era is over. The U.S. now taxes foreign income much more quickly. All right, that's it for today. The key takeaway is in international tax, we must understand who qualifies for a U.S. shareholder when a foreign corporation becomes a CFC, and how TCJA and OBBBA fundamentally change the tax treatment of CFC income. In the next video, we'll move into the basics of effectively connected income. I welcome your thoughts on these topics. Subscribe if you like to learn more.